Hello, I'm Alberta26, and today I'm going to be talking about Darksiders 2, an action adventure game with some RPG elements. Darksiders 2 is made by Vigil Games, who made the first Darksiders game, which I was very fond of, so I had high expectations for this one. The premise of the game is you take on the mantle of death, one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse. In the first one you were war, and in this one you're death. The apocalypse has come to Earth, and it's come early, and war is being held accountable for this. Death knows believes his brother to be innocent, and he is trying to prove his brother's innocence. The first game had a bit of a conspiracy feel to it. You felt like there were forces working to stop you from what you're trying to do in a very direct way. There's less of that in this game. You do have to contend with an opponent called Corruption, which has something to do with Death's past, which gets revealed throughout the course of the game. And additionally, anybody that you try to solicit help from will first, of course, make you perform a task or tasks for them. But no one is directly opposed to what you're trying to do, so far anyway, as far as I am in the game. So it does keep some of that mystery and conspiracy feel, but there's not like a direct opposition that you feel is keeping you from doing things. You just feel that Death has been left in the dark on a lot of the stuff that he's learning now, and you can feel his frustration in that. Appearance-wise, I'm really impressed with it. I play it on the Xbox 360. You'll be making your way through lush forest environments, as well as barren deserts, and several other environments. The soundtrack is pretty appropriate when you're fighting. It gets kind of busy. It's not really like a rousing soundtrack where I was wowed by it, but it did the job. For the musical score anyway. The sound effects are all very appropriate, and appropriate hacking and slashing noises, and the ability noises when you use some of Death's abilities are spooky, kind of dark, evil. The entire art style of the game is really kind of dark because you're playing Death, and that seems appropriate. So gameplay-wise, the game's pretty fast-paced. You do spend some time doing some dungeon crawling, and you do have to kind of figure out some puzzles here and there, but it's nothing where you're just standing there scratching your head forever. When contending with a dungeon in Darksiders 2, you'll do some pretty standard stuff that you probably expect. You'll be pulling levers, pushing buttons, standing on pressure plates, opening doors, opening up chests,
you horsemen,
and of course enjoying some
the
dialogue.
lives you have ended. I know why you are here.
Then you will give me the key.
Death doesn't start with very many abilities at the beginning of the game, but you find them and you're rewarded with them throughout. This is one of my favorites from the first game. It's called Voidwalker, and what it allows you to do is place portals on specific surfaces that you can then jump through. It really helps you navigate around. Very reminiscent of Portal 2 and Portal 1, of course. I thought it was a really cool mechanic for them to throw in. When you're not doing any of those things, you'll be contending with the game's numerous and varied enemies. You can be fighting lots of weaker opponents or several slightly stronger opponents. There also are a lot of really large-scale fights that aren't necessarily boss battles. They're just very large enemies that you have to deal with. So this is an example of some of the, I wouldn't say weak enemies, but they're not really particularly strong. See, I'm able to stagger them with my attacks, flip them around and such. Still have to be on the ball though, or you're going to get beat up. So that's Death's main weapon set there, the sides. Kind of a medium speed. They can end up pretty powerful if you upgrade them well enough. In addition to Death's primary weapon, the scythes, you are also able to equip secondary weapons. These are broken up into two types. There are gauntlets, which are and bucklers, which are fast attacking glove type weapons. The claws and such pretty much focus on damage, whereas the bucklers you can actually block with. Death doesn't have a block mechanic otherwise, so if you think blocking is your style, then you're probably going to end up wearing bucklers. Also, the slow heavy weapons, these consist of maces, axes, glaives. These weapons are really heavy and really slow, but deal out a lot of damage, so pretty cool. In this clip we're going to see some of the very weak enemies. As you can see, I've really staggered them with ease. Their hits don't actually stagger me and impede my ability to strike them. Here I've switched into using the glaive. It's my heavy weapon of choice. This is an example of one of the not bosses, or ironically NOS, which is not boss. Visual refers to them like that because they're not really considered true bosses. I'm not going to get super elevated rewards or amazing progression through the story for defeating this. That cannon that I'm using was given to me for this portion of the game. I haven't seen it before. I probably won't get to use it later in the game either. Really very effective for taking guys down at range. The action is broken up really well with puzzles and platforming elements. Death is really fast, really fluid motion, gets around really easily. Navigating is not too frustrating. This is a good example of platforming right here. This room is a bit of a gauntlet. You can see once I get the lever down, the floor starts to rise, and so you have to rush to make your way up through this room. It took me a couple tries. It's a little sneaky. So you can see the wall running. Got certain pegs that'll let you jump forward or up. This is a grapple right here. You pick that up not too far into the game. You can use it to pull yourself up and along walls, and also you can use it to swing from. Some of them will be hanging from the ceiling. A recent ability that I picked up is the ability to turn yourself into a statue, which will remain stationary, so you can use that either to grapple to, or you can use it to hold down a pressure plate. And then while you've turned yourself into a statue, you get two incarnations of yourself, which you can then control. You can alternate between controlling them and have them do tasks like push levers or scale things to hold down different pressure plates. As far as dying in Darksiders 2 goes, if you die to the environment, like if you are running along a wall and you fall and there's nothing but spikes or an endless abyss beneath you, Death, instead of actually dying, takes on his Reaper form, and he'll just bring himself back up to a safe place. If you die in combat to an enemy, you do have to restart, but it doesn't send you too far back, so it's not a humongous setback. I thought that kept the game moving pretty quickly. It didn't have you starting way back at distant waypoints, having to do a bunch of stuff over again, but it doesn't make death have no penalty in the game, so I thought that was a good move on their part. you can find as you're questing. You'll be able to find new pieces of armor and new weapons. New equipment not only can help improve your damage output or your survivability, but it also has a visible effect on your character. Some things have completely different models and appearance, while others will simply be recolors of an existing model. So you have a good feel of customization, and you get a new piece, and it changes the way your death looks. The game also features a skill tree for death. He has 2 of them. Every time you level up, you receive a skill point, and you get to distribute them however you so choose. One thing I did like with the skill points was that you're not locked in once you spend them. And pretty cheaply from an NPC in the game, you can respec and redistribute your points however you choose. So maybe you pick up an ability early in the game, decide you don't like it later in the game or don't need it so much, you can put those points elsewhere where they'll serve you much better. One of the things I liked about the game is that it's worth it to backtrack some. Even in the first like 20 minutes of playing the game, I encountered areas where I couldn't really progress right then, but within an hour or so, I found or gained new abilities that let me open up those areas. So it encourages you to go back and do stuff and not necessarily just play the game linearly. You can play it that way, but you won't get all the loot, and you won't get all the best gear, etc. So it's pretty worth it to backtrack around. All in all, I'm pretty pleased with it. I had good expectations for this game. I really enjoyed the first one, and the second one did not disappoint. It's got a lot of good action. It's got good puzzles. The story is pretty engaging. Um, yeah, overall, I'm really happy with it. So, Darksiders 2, check it out. Thanks for watching. It's Alberta26. Catch you guys next time.